Hello. Today we're going to talk about publishing content to the web, and this is really going to end up being more than anything a kind of a tutorial on how to use an FTP client. So we're going to go through the process of creating something on your local computer, getting it on the web, and how to access it. And I'll discuss what else I can while I'm doing that. So you're going to need an FTP client to do this. A lot of web hosts have something built in, but I'm going to use a real FTP client. So I created like a dummy account or a demo account just for the purpose of this video. So I'm going to show you what a fresh account looks like. Now this is an account that I just created. Now the interesting thing about like a remote web host, which is kind of what we're looking at here, is that they're always set up differently. So this is an FTP client. This side of the screen represents my local computer. This side of the screen represents the remote host. I don't know what your username, password is. I don't know that stuff, right? I mean, I'm not worried about that. You should have an email with that information. So on this host that I'm working with, this is what my folder looks like by default. Notice there's a bunch of things in here, and it's not terribly important what they are. The two that you do need to take notice of are the public HTML and www. So these folders right here, you might have more. You probably have less, I would guess. There's also a few just files in here. You don't need to be too concerned about those at first. You just need to know about, there's going to be something probably called something like HTML or public HTML, and there's probably one called www. These both point to the same place. Now let me show you that. If I double click on this, you see it shows me this folder, which doesn't have anything really too interesting in it. Sometimes you're going to want to go back up in an FTP client. That dot dot, that means up one. All right, and so here's where I was. Now I'm going to show you that public HTML folder. Notice that's the same folder. None of the other folders are things I'm concerned about right now, but let me tell you what I can about this. So all of these folders here are not publicly accessible, except for that HTML folder and that www folder. And what that means is if I put things in these folders, then anyone on the internet can view them by default. Anything in this folder and the non-public HTML and non-www folders are going to be private for now. So let me show you some more interesting stuff. I also want to mention that file management is crucial. If file management is not something that you're decent at, then you are not going to have success publishing things online. So like you need to be able to put your things in folders, give your things good names. One thing that you do need to know about this environment is this remote server is case sensitive, and spaces are a really bad idea when you're putting things online. Over here on my local computer, Windows environment, I can name things however I want to name them. Not true over here. All right, so I've talked for 3 minutes. Let's start getting to the more interesting stuff. All right, so let me go to a website here. So you notice that what I put right there, casewar.cocc, that is the domain. And now I'm going to go there, and you notice there's nothing there. Right? When you go to a web page and you just see something that looks like this, what you're viewing is the contents of a folder. Let me show you how that ties in with the FTP. Notice if I go to this www folder, see that and that? You see how those match up? When you go to a public folder and there is not an index file, this is what you see. And you do see folders like this on the internet, but you shouldn't ever see them. All right, so let me show you the next part of this. All right, here's where it starts to get a little bit interesting. All right, notice this file right here. Maybe I should minimize it just so you can be clear about what's going on. This is just a text editor. Here's a web page. It's literally the worst web page in the world, but it's a web page. I want to show you where this is. It just says hello world. Notice I save it. I named it index.html, and I basically stored it on my desktop. All right, I save it. It's already there. Fine, I'll replace it. So what I want to do now is I want to take this thing and I want to put it online. Right? Let's pretend this is an actual useful web page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the left side here. I am looking for that file. I know that file is on my desktop. So I'm just browsing. It's not the easiest thing, and that thing is called, sorry, I don't remember what it's called, right? I told you. So the file management's important. It's in this folder. This is literally sitting on my desktop, and if I want to put this thing online, then that means I need to put it in either the public HTML or the www folder. So I can just click and drag it, or you can just double click it, but I'm going to click and drag so you can see it better. Notice I drag it over. It took a couple seconds. So what I did is I took this this file, which is on my local computer, and now I put it online. That's what you call publishing. And it is in one of those public folders. And so notice the name is index.html. There's something significant about that, and that is, if now see this kind of root domain right here, if I refresh this page, I no longer see the contents of a folder, I see that silly little web page that I made. And so every public folder on a web server should have an index in it. If it does not have an index, then what's going to end up happening is whoever stumbles across this page is going to see all the files as opposed to a page. You always know that you're at a corner of the internet that you weren't really supposed to see when that happens. So you should always have an index page. Let me show you some more. Let's say I want to edit this, right? Like I want to make this better. So let's say I want to make it bold. You'll have to excuse my typing. I'm in a sling. I literally type 2 to 3 words per minute. This is as fast as I can go. All right, so big changes, right? I wanted to make that bold. So the steps for doing a change, it's a little annoying, but you'll get used to it over time, is you have to save it. Right? Every time you make changes, you have to save it. Then I have to go to my FTP client, drag it over. It's going to get mad. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to replace this? I'm sure I do. And now I go to the real web, look at my page. Notice nothing happened, right? That hello world's not bold until I refresh it. So that's kind of the cycle that you go through. You've got that document that you're working on locally, like this. You make your changes, you save it. Then you open up your FTP client, move it over to the server, and then you refresh your page. There's some keyboard shortcuts which can really help this out because it's just a continuing cycle, just over and over and over and over again. But that is the process of publishing something to the web. A lot of people have a ton of trouble with this when they're just starting out. It's all about file management, giving things good names. Don't forget to save. Don't forget to refresh. And that's more or less the process for putting something online. Just so you know, in this folder here, my public folder, you are certainly allowed to create subfolders. What I mean by that is, like, let's say that you want to get some more organization going on. I create a new directory called ASDF, right, which is a pretty poor name. I click OK. If I wanted to access that, I would, instead of just going to the root domain, I would say /ASDF. I head in there, and notice I get this little thing again. You can kind of see that there's nothing really in there because there's not anything in there. I just created it a second ago. And you can kind of see that by doing this. All right, and so parent directory, that's just a link back to the page before it. It's a huge mess, right? So what I'm trying to show you is what the default looks like in a folder. So any subfolders in here are going to be public by default. Any folder which doesn't have an index is going to end up displaying something weird. It's not always necessarily the contents of a folder. Sometimes it'll default to some kind of little under construction page. But that's the basics of publishing content to the web. I hope that helps you to better understand the process. It's not terribly technical. It is one of those things that you just need a ton of experience. It needs to just be something you do hundreds and hundreds of times, and then it starts to become second nature. So just practice. Make sure to name your files appropriately, and good luck.